Let's visualize together for a moment. We live on Earth, the third planet from the Sun. The Sun is a pretty average star, not very large, and living its best middle-aged life. Our solar system as a whole isn't very special either. There are about 300 billion other stars in the Milky Way galaxy, most of which also have planets. If we zoom out a little bit more, we can see that the Milky Way is dancing with roughly 50 other galaxies. This collection of galaxies is known as the Local Group, and it's not very exceptional. That's because some galaxies are in groups with hundreds to thousands of other galaxies, all gravitationally bound to one another. These structures are called galaxy clusters, and they are the most massive objects in the universe. The most massive. If we were in a cluster, our night sky would look very different. For one thing, it would be brighter, as our neighborhood would be quite crowded. Our own galaxy would appear orange instead of blue, as blue colors signify youth in a galaxy, emitting from areas where new stars are born. But our galaxy would likely never birth a new star again. In fact, almost every galaxy in our neighborhood would look like a dim, orange blob of light because nearly all galaxies and clusters are no longer forming stars, and this really bugs astronomers. How do we figure out what killed galaxies and clusters if we can only take pictures of their carcasses? Let me paint a picture for you. If we think of galaxies as our grandparents, galaxies in cluster environments would be the ones you know lived a hard life just by looking at them. They're always tired, maybe they had one too many kids all at once, or they just partied a little too hard in their youth, and now they live at home with other senior citizens who went through something similar. However, galaxies living in small groups or isolation like our Milky Way would be those grandparents that still go salsa dancing once a week and can do more push-ups than you can. They will probably outlive us all. These two types of galaxies were born at the exact same time, but the less crowded ones are still gently forming stars and hanging on to that blue-colored youth, essentially the equivalent of enjoying a really long retirement. So what exactly happened to cluster galaxies that caused them to age so rapidly? To get to the bottom of this, astronomers have created simulations to understand the possible births and lives of these objects based on data from hundreds of real senior galaxy clusters nearby. This is essentially the equivalent of taking thousands of photos of senior citizens and using physics to model what these citizens might have looked like when they were babies. As you can imagine, a lot of assumptions and theories go into these models, so we need pictures of middle-aged, teenage, and baby clusters to really test our theories. Thankfully, in the last decade, we've started filling in our evolutionary photo album with more middle-aged and teenage pictures, but we were lacking in baby photos. Galaxy cluster babies, also known as protoclusters, can be difficult to identify because they don't have the same qualities as their descendants. The galaxies inside our protocluster are likely blue instead of red as they're still growing and forming stars. They're also more spread out across the sky as they're still traveling across vast distances to eventually fall into the final cluster formation. And they are hard to see because they live at earlier times in the universe, which means they are much farther away from us. Due to all of these difficulties, we must seize the opportunity to study a protocluster deeply whenever we do find one. And we've found a big one. We've discovered a massive cluster caught in the act of formation in the early universe. Our current measurements show that every galaxy in this cluster is simultaneously forming stars at extreme rates. I'm talking thousands of times faster than the Milky Way galaxy. These galaxies are also merging with others nearby, and both of these processes are believed to accelerate galaxy evolution and bring the senior lifestyle to cluster galaxies sooner than their less crowded counterparts. Soon, we will determine exactly how many galaxies are expected to collapse into this protocluster. Is it hundreds? Is it thousands? Then we will predict what this cluster might look like today after evolving for 11 billion years. And if we're lucky enough to discover more protoclusters, one day we may be able to actually map the fingerprint left over from the universe's birth, the Big Bang.